Hello, everybody, and welcome to the WBL Recap. My name is John.
And I'm James.
Now, the purpose of the show is to give you all the latest news and highlights from the WarBow League community. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at our current teams and their standings in Season 0.
This week, the Swordbreakers have the highest win count, with Knight Life out of Tracy closing in fast. And up and coming is another team out of Tracy, the Shadow Assassins, which could be our first all-female team. They picked up 2 wins in the season, and we're eager to see what they'll do in the future.
Now that we know who's playing the game, let's go ahead and take a look at some highlights from our most recent match with Knight Life versus Swordbreakers.
That's right, John. We had an intense match yesterday between Knight Life and the Swordbreakers. The scores seesawed back and forth, but in the end, Knight Life took the lead. In round 1, Swordbreakers went off to a strong start, diving for arrows and taking the lead. In round 2, we saw a momentum shift. Swordbreakers were hanging on, showing their defensive skills. In round 3, Knight Life took the lead after a hard-fought battle, showing off their new moves and some fancy footwork.
That's correct, James. Now, you actually got a chance to interview the team captain from Knight Life about some of that fancy footwork he put into play.
Yes, it was a very interesting interview with the captain of the Knight Life team, Tyler Blanca.
All right, so last week we had a highly anticipated game between Knight Life and Swordbreakers. And this was highly anticipated because we had people that were at the forefront and really pushing the boundaries, and we would consider higher performing. I'm here with Tyler Blanca. He's the captain of the Knight Life team. So with that said, this match was very interesting because we had a few new players in that contributed their ideas and their new techniques in that. So let's talk about this game because it was actually a very exciting game. It started off with Knight Life sort of on the defensive. And I've got an excerpt here that kind of shows, and you'll see that the Swordbreakers are much more organized. They're behind the cover most of the time, and they're weaving around expertly. And it puts you kind of in the back foot. So let's take a quick look at that.
We got 4-2. Got another hit, 5-2.
Swordbreakers taking the lead.
Now we see this as a bit of mercy in the beginning of the game. Nice evasion by Knight Life.
So you can see, like in that clip, that you guys were a bit bunched up. You were out in the open, and it seemed like you were getting picked off a little bit. So at the end of round 1, what did you guys do as a team to try to turn this around?
Mm-hmm. So we had a new member on the team, and I was trying to give Alex, I was trying to give him as much of a rundown as I could, but we had no training with him before that game. Mm-hmm. And so I was explaining tactics and stuff like this, but I was trying to figure out who was good on what side. If we're going from left to right, it would be 1, 2, 3. I was asking, okay, what zone do you want? And in the beginning, he wasn't really sure. We weren't sure where he was good from shooting. So I was like, you know what? I'll take zone 1 because that seems to be one of the harder zones. And from there, though, Aziz, or I'm not sure what his name is, but he was on that same side with me. And he was putting pressure to the point where I had to leave my zone and causing us to all bunch up on the right side, going towards more 2 and 3. When we were all bunched up like that, we were just sitting ducks, man. It was too much to try and dodge or block, especially if all of us were super close together. All 3 of the teams were coordinating. And so after that first round, it was, I believe, 8-4 or something similar of the sort for the score. Mm-hmm. But I decided to say, you know what, we're going to try and switch up the who's on what side. And at that point, I told Ben and Alex, okay, what side do you guys feel comfortable on? And we kind of went from there. And then we tried that out. And even then, after that redisbursement of manpower, we still felt like it could be improved. So I feel like for us, round 3 kind of seemed to be the round where we all felt comfortable in whatever zones we were in. And for Alex, that happened to be zone 1, which in the beginning was hard for me, but seemed to be really good for him. So figuring out what team members were good in what areas in the moment was probably one of the best things that we could have done.
Right. So I'm going to show you a couple clips here because there's a stark. Again, this is kind of like a compare and contrast, right? Because what we have here is Raul's a good player on the Swordbreaker team, and what he was doing was he was soaking up the attacks, he was forcing long range attacks, and he was deflecting. And you'll see in this clip here.
Nice evasion. Look at how
nice deflection.
Oh my god.
So you'll see like the kind of defensive power he has, kind of collect attacks and take attention.
Yeah, Raul, what I remember during the game, one of the things that there was two things that Raul did that really caught my attention. The first one was he would look one direction and fire another direction using his peripherals. And that was a threat immediately because even though I knew he wasn't looking at me, I knew he was aiming at me. And so by about the third time he did that, I knew, okay, now we can bait this. I know he's looking at me, so I'm going to act like I don't know. And it was funny because him and I talked about it after. We both kind of played that cat game, like we don't know who we're looking at, and then all of a sudden the fire would go off and we'd both move at the same time. Right. The second thing he did was the deflects. I shot him, I'm not exaggerating, it had to have been at least 7 or 8 times that he blocked all of them. It felt like every time I shot at him, he was a tank holding a shield. He's boom, block, boom, block. The only way I was able to get him, once I realized that he was good at blocking, was I aimed high and I pretend to pull, and then I actually aimed low. And I shot him right in between the knees and the hips, so right in the thigh area. And then that was the only way I was able to get the guy. I think I only hit him once or twice throughout the whole game. That guy was a tank.
Well, let's take a look at round 3 here because you'll notice the shift in the whole mood. And you'll see that the Swordbreakers kind of started to become a little more stationary, a little less mobile, and a little more bunched up.
I think they got tired, yeah.
I think so.
They can make it in 2 points. We can tie this up. Overtime. I think that'll be our first time going to overtime since we've done our live stream, correct? A hit. Looks like a double hit. So we got 14-12. Still a 2-point lead on the Swordbreaker side. Nice evasion by Tyler. And a hit. We have hit.
So you'll see there, like there's the whole shift, and that was sort of the momentum shift, and you guys were able to edge out that last point and take the game. Mm-hmm. So another thing I found very interesting and is there was a lot of close range combat, especially you were all over the field, and I think it's fair to say that you were probably one of the most active players on the Knight Life team. Just everywhere, on the side, in the center, making runs. Let's take a look at this one here. This is interesting because there were several instances where you were up against Emilio of the Swordbreakers, right on that side there.
Going into close range.
Oh my God!
Tops and all.
And finally got it. That's what happens. You let your. Team leader for this third round. 13-10.
So what's the mentality there? Because it's very counterintuitive, right? Because it's one of those situations where it's high risk, but somehow you're able to play that corner there and manage. Is there a certain mentality, or is there a certain gut feeling?
Well, what I remember when I ran up to that, as soon as I saw him reach over the line, when he loaded and reached around, my first instinct was to grab it. I don't know why. It just was like, oh, that's a threat. And I grabbed it immediately. And I was like, oh, I thought I was going to get in trouble. I thought you guys were going to say, no, that's not allowed or whatever. And I was like, oh, it actually seemed to be a good thing. And then after that, the second time, I was trying to get him first, but I couldn't get a grab. So I just used my bow to smack the arrow down. And that seemed to be useful. What I liked was that he saw that and he tried to do the same thing back. That's what I love about martial arts, is that when you're in the middle of a game and you recognize something that's good, you usually try to replicate it. And he tried to replicate it back, and that's why I knew to stay back. I didn't extend myself past the middle line. And that's when he tried to reach, he couldn't reach me. He was a little bit out of range. And I knew, okay, he has no arrows. So I will fake it. I'll pretend I'm going to shoot cross mid, get myself out a little bit, and then I just came around the corner. I even told him, oh, don't worry, I'm not going to shoot you. And I went back and I shot him. I felt kind of bad. But, you know, it's part of the game. And when you're that close to somebody, reaction time is going to be your best friend. So like a twitch reflex, just real quick. Whoever can get there first will be the quick draw master.
Well, one thing is for sure, this is a constantly evolving sport. And so everyone's kind of making up the rules of how to play, you know, on the fly. And, you know, I have a feeling this is going to be something people think about now from this point forward. And maybe the rules will have to adapt to understand how to make it compelling for everyone. But for now, I mean, it's fair play.
Right.
So I'm going to close on what I consider to be kind of like the flashy highlight of the week there, where you made a run into dangerous territory, took a shot off, and then this amazing spin move that happened to just miss. And I don't know whether it was instinct or whether it was something premeditated, but it was certainly very, very eye-drawing. Let's take a look at that.
Nice deflection.
13-9 with Swordbreakers in the lead. Nice run shot and evasion by Tyler. Nice spin move there.
So everybody loves spinning, and but that was just kind of like really eye-drawing, and maybe probably the highlight of the week. Just getting in there, doing a quick strike, and just spinning out of there and getting back to safety there. I'm sure that we'll have many more of these in the future, but I mean, the spin move. So is there something about that that's special, or, you know, it's just something that you instinctively do?
Well, the spin move to me has always been a go-to move, even not just in WarBow, but throughout martial arts in general, whether you're sword fighting, stick fighting, even just boxing. You got your spinning back fist. Whatever direction you plan on moving, that's the way you're going to spin. Now, there's two ways you can set yourself up for a spin move. You can either go into horse stance, and you can kind of find your dominant side, whether it be, okay, I already know I'm going left, or I know I'm going right. And as soon as you feel like your opponent's going to let go, your center, your square, almost does like a pivot. So if this is the square, you're going to do boom, and that one spot that they were shooting at here is now all the way over here. And to me, that's always been a good move. Sometimes it's hit or miss. If your opponent is good at timing, they'll wait until you spin and then shoot you. But to me, it's always been one of those things that just felt kind of natural. In reality, if you want to do a good dodge, instead of being a square box towards your opponent, you should be shifted this way and sideways to make yourself as thin as possible, moving forward and backwards, trying to doing this head movement. But sometimes you don't have all that time. In that moment, this is the position I was in because I was trying to shoot, and I just had to, like, oh, okay, what am I going to do? You can jump to one side, you can jump to the other side, kind of like a boxer. But in this motion of spinning, you build momentum and you can clear a lot more distance in the direction you want to go.
Yeah.
With that being said, it's a lot easier said than done. But I do it in practice all the time. Like, I'll have a bunch of the guys shooting at me, and I'll just try and evade with no arrows, no bow. And that seems to be the move that gets a lot of people off guard. They don't expect the little airbender style spin out when you're moving, you know? And so I definitely recommend it. But at the same time, if your opponent, now that everybody knows about it, I guarantee you people are going to pull their draws, and they're going to see it as okay, Tyler might be a spin move. Wait for it. Boom. So now that that's out in the open, I'm going to have to figure out how to fake that and make people think I'm going to go one way and maybe spin the other way. I don't know. We're going to have to see it in the game, though.
Well, what I do notice, though, is that spinning does set you up to move in a different direction easier than a different type of dodge. Like, say you're trying you're moving one direction and then you're going the opposite direction. Well, spinning will reorient your body in a way where you can move forward faster. So we'll have to see as time goes how this evolves. But thank you so much for providing your insight. It was a very entertaining game to watch, and we're definitely going to keep our eyes on Knight Life in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, James. It's always exciting to get into the heads of our athletes. Now, it's not too late, guys. Season 0 just started.
That's right. There are general rec games being held every other week. So to see your latest listing in your area, just check out our webpage at www.warbowleague.com on the events page.
And coming up this August, we're going to have our first tournament, so you still have time to join. Well, that's it for us today, guys. We'll catch you at the next game.